My name's Jay Robinson. I like to dig old bottles, and I've been doing it since I was 13 years old. And I'm going to try to show you my collection here. It's the bottle that got me started right here. This first bottle I dug out back of my house on the Medway Road. I was 13 years old, and I was quite thrilled when I found it. There was an old cellar hole out back of there. Being a curious young lad, I decided to poke around and found this here. Can you read it? It says Govan's Syrup for Babies. And it was for teething pain for babies, colicky babies, but it had a touch of morphine in it. And sometimes, adults used it, but you had to be really careful with this stuff here, the morphine. You could overdo it. And unfortunately, some babies died from taking too much of this here. But that's the first bottle that got me going here, out back of the old house on Medway Road. I got to tell you up front, I shake a little. Okay, that's just my nervous condition, and something I have to live with. So if you see me shaking, that's why. I take medication for it, but still, sometimes it's better and sometimes worse. So let's see what happens. Thanks for bearing with me. Okay, I'm going to start here over this side here and show you some of my best bottles. Most of these bottles, or probably all of these bottles on this third row here, I dug, myself. So we'll just go from the right to the left. And this is the Fellows Leeming Essence, it says. This was dug on the Morgan farm here where I live now in Woodville. There was an old settlement there going back to the 1900s, 1800s. And I found this along a rock wall. And I don't know what leeming is, but I think it was probably some kind of liniment. 1890, 1900. This old bottle right here, it says Bixby on the bottom. It's a shoe polish type of bottle. I found this over in Matabsconis, old farmland. Bird cover I like to hunt on. And it had some cellar holes on it. So I dug some bottles around there, Matabsconis. If you look these old bottles, you can determine an old bottle by the mold seam. I don't know if you see this seam going all the way up here, but it ends right here. What it was back then, the process of making a bottle hadn't been perfected, the whole bottle. So they made the bottle in a mold up to here. They took it out of the mold, and this top part was put on by hand. So it's called a blown in a mold applied lip bottle to us collectors. That's a B-I-M-A-L, Bimal. And that's how you can tell an old bottle made 1900, 1905 to before. After 1905 or so, they had perfected the art of making the whole bottle in a mold. So that's how you can date them. These are more collectible. The bottles, the seam doesn't go to the top. This nice little bottle right here came from First Debskin Egg. And I don't know if you can read it, but it says Not a Bite, Black Fly and Mosquito Lotion, made by Oronite, Bangor, Maine. There was a setting sporting camps on First Debskin Egg on the bluffs, and they called it the Garland camps. And it was run from about 1880 till probably 1910. And I get up in there and dug some nice bottles. There were a lot of broken ones, but it was kind of fun digging this old spot. And this little bottle right here is a sample bottle. It's a pharmacy bottle, and it says Harry J. Gagne, registered pharmacist. Millinocket, Maine. Dug this at a sporting camp. They called it the Katahdin View Sporting Camps. It was on the river below Pockwaukemus Falls, and it ran from about 1890 to 1935. Fred Pittman ran it later, but there was a big fire in 1935, and it wiped out that whole area there. The sporting camps burned, but I knew a way to get there, and I used to, dig it. It had been dug by other people before, but I still found some old bottles. This is a Millinocket bottle, and Harry J. Gagne had a place on the main drag. I think it was right on the corner there, Gagne's drugstore. And this bottle probably dates right around 1910 or so. The seam doesn't go all the way to the top. This bottle here says Sloan's Liniment kills pain. And that came from along the river where Souderhunk Deadwater is. There was a river driving operation going on there about the turn of the century up until about 1915 or so. And my father found this area while he was deer hunting one year along the river, and he could tell that there was activity there. So he told me about it, and I went down, and I found quite a few bottles there. Yeah. Found a couple of coins, and one was dated 1899, it was nickel, and a dime that was dated 1912. This little bottle right here I just got this year, it says Eli's Cream Bomb, and it came from South Twin. There was a hotel right there when you cross the railroad tracks on the Brownville Road where the marina is. If right to the right in the woods, there was a hotel there, and it was run by a fellow named P.S. Willie, and people used to come up from the city and stuff and stop there along the railroad tracks at that hotel, and go to points north and fish and hunt and just explore the region. This was right around the turn of the century, actually before the mill got going, and the only route into town basically was the railroad, so people came in this way and discovered the area even before the mill. So if you can see it, I don't know, it's some kind of stuff that you probably rub on yourself for sore and aching muscles and bones. Eli's Cream Balm. This says Indian root beer extract, and that came from Sobois, whatever, however you want to pronounce it. But there was a railroad depot in Sobois, and right around the turn of the century. My dad used to bird hunt there, and showed me it, and there was quite a big dump there, and a lot of these bottles came from either Shack Hill or Sobois when I was a kid. I had two periods when I used to dig old bottles. When I first started, I was 13 years old, about 1968, and then I dug pretty heavy until about 1972 when I was a junior in high school, and I was growing up, and you know how things change when you grow up, you get other interests. But later on, when the mill was going down and going through its throes, about 2004, I got back into digging, and a lot of the places that I dug before, I went back to and was still able to find old bottles. I had new methods of digging for bottles and searching for bottles with metal detectors and probes, and so I found, like I said, a lot of bottles that I had passed up before. This is another Fellows Leaming Essence, and that came from the Morgan Farm too. 1890 or so. I don't know if you can see all these right here, but these are all ink bottles. We call this a cone ink, and the seam doesn't go to the top. That came from Stone Dam. Of course, when the mill was first being made, they needed a dam to hold back the water for power generation. So along the West Branch, they made a dam. They called it Stone Dam, and it was the base camps were about 1899, 1900, and of course there was people living there and staying there, and they dumped. So I found it and put back in there and found quite a few nice bottles. More cone inks. This little bottle right here is one of my favorites. I dug this bottle on the Slaughter Pond Trail when I was just a kid, probably 14 years old, 1969 or so. And of course the trail into Slaughter, there was a couple of logging operations going on in there around the turn of the century, 1910 or so. And you could see them as you passed by them on the way to the pond. So my father went on fishing and I dug bottles. So I found this nice little bottle right here, and it says Pain Expeller, F-A-D Richter, R-I-C-H-T-E-R, for rheumatism, gout, and neuralgia, etc. Nice little bottle. See? One of my special bottles. I'm just a kid, dig this. Every time I go to Slaughter, go by that spot, and I think of this bottle. This is a little sample bottle of Dr. Kilmer's Swamp Root. I have the big one right behind me here. I'll show you in a minute. It's a sample bottle of it. And I got this down the bottom of the hill here from where I live in Woodville. We used to call it the Lion's Cover, but before they flooded the area over with Weldon Dam, there was quite a settlement along where Pettigumper Stream and the river meet. And there was a house there. It's all flooded now underwater, but I found some old bottles just back by the river edge. And this little bottle popped out of the ground. I dug that back in the 70s in my first period of digging bottles. This is another sample bottle of Dr. Kilmer's Swamp Root, a different size, still kind of small. But that one came from Stone Dam. It says Dr. Haynes Arabian Balsam. They used a lot of balsams and liniments and stuff back then because work was hard, and they had sore aching muscles and bones, so they rubbed this liniment on them. Hard work back then when we were young. Another bottle from Madame Sconus. It's called St. Jacob's Oil. Oil is spelled O-E-L. St. Jacob's Oil. Sample bottle, Murine Eye Remedy. Still being made today, Murine. This is an old corker. Cork shop. Little relic I picked up. Salt, pepper shaker. Pewter. I think it came from out back of my house where I dug. I got so many bottles there, I can't keep track of where the heck I dug them. Most of them I can, and they all have stories behind them. This is a liquor bottle, and they call it a pumpkin seed flask. Nice clear bottle. Had a label on it, of course. Old cork top. Probably put that in your back pocket. Whenever you want a little nip, take that out of your back pocket. Probably about I don't know, $20 bottle. This is another pumpkin seed flask. It's called a Sunburst. If you can see the embossing along the edges, it has what they call a ground lip. It's a screw top, and right around the turn of the century or so, they made this. They took it out of the mold, and the top was still kind of sharp, so they ground it down. And I got this at Shack Hill. Had a lot of fun at Shack Hill. I gotta tell you about Shack Hill. Of course, I was just a kid, and I got permission from Jim Gaffune. He was a mill manager, and he let me go up there. And sometimes I'd take my bicycle right through the back gate, Somerset Street gate. And sometimes when I got bottles, I'd go down to the mill where my dad was working in the paper room, go through the revolving doors, bring them in and show them bottles. You get quite a kick out of it. Just a kid coming in the mill and showing off my bottles. All kinds of good things happening back then. This is a Canadian bottle, but it's another teething pain bottle for babies, and it had morphine in it again, so adults probably used it too, but it has a French writing on it. But, being close, Maine and Canada, some of the bottles came from Quebec or Montreal, and they had French writing on them. This little bottle is a perfume bottle, cologne, and it says Austin's Forest Flower Cologne. Got it in Mattamasconis along the Penobscot River. Another bird cover, got poking around in. Found a little dump. Whenever I'm out in the woods bird hunting or deer hunting, I'm always looking for places like that. I really like history and history of the area. One more baby teething pain type bottle with morphine in it. Mrs. Winslow's Soothing Syrup. That come from Seboyas. Sample bottle, Kemp's Balsam. Chester. Place in Chester that I dug when I was younger, and I'm still digging it. Still digging one or two bottles. Little bird cover I like to hunt on the old Keene Road. There's a fellow by the name of Samuel Keene lived there back in the turn of the century and a little before. He was an officer in the Civil War. I looked up some research and finding quite a few nice bottles in there. When I go to these places and dig bottles, probably 90% of the bottles I find are broken, unfortunately. But when you find a good one, it makes it kind of worth a while. When I dig nowadays, all these bottles I already have, it's hard for me to find a bottle that I haven't already got in my collection. That's alright, I just like finding a bottle. Clay pipe. The stem used to go to about out here. It broke off and they threw it away, but they used to smoke whatever tobacco they had back then. Put it in there. you know. This is another perfume, cologne bottle. It says C.I. Hood. I can't read the other writing. That come from the Butterfield Ridge Road, a place we call the John Day Cover. It was the old Fog Farm. A friend of mine, John Day, used to live there later on. We actually had our senior party there in '73 when I graduated. But there was an old farm there, cellar hole. I found a few bottles. This one here, turn of the century. Another place I dug was Cedar Lake area. There was a sporting camp there run by a Mr. Smith around the turn of the century. And found a few bottles there. This one here says Chamberlain's Colic, Cholera, and Diarrhea Remedy. I'm sure it had alcohol in it. And anything with alcohol and a few herbs, if you drank enough of it, make you feel better. Another sample bottle. Mingue's Toothache Drops. A little lip chip. Where the heck that come from? I think that come from Shack Hill. This is a little poison bottle. Probably chloroform or something. Kill animals with, I don't know, kill people with. Who knows what kind of poison they used. Come from Cebollas. These little poison bottles are quite collectible. Probably $20 for that little bottle right there. Another bottle from Cedar Lake. Chamberlain's Pain Balm. Little corker. How I found out about the Cedar Lake sporting camps was a fellow by the name of Charlie Pratt used to work in Hannaford. He was a pharmacist there. And he had a camp on Cedar Lake, right next to where these sporting camps were. And he found some old bottles there, and he had them on display. He worked at the pharmacy there in Millinocket. And I got interested in them. We got to talking, and he said, you ought to come up sometime. It's a place right next door to where I live here. There was old sporting camps, and you might find a few bottles. So I went up, and I think this was back in 2004. And I spent probably most of the summer digging there. Found a lot of broken ones, but found a few good ones. Hall's Catarrh Cure for, catarrh. Come from Cebollas. Winchester gun oil. Cebollas. Now we'll go back. Go back this way. The bigger bottles in the back row. It's what they call a Hutchinson soda. And had a big blob top, real thick glass. When they first were making carbonated beverages, they needed the glass to be thick, because if it wasn't, the bottle, the carbonation tended to explode in the bottles. They didn't know how much it was carbonated. It had like a cork top to it. My dad dug this bottle in Cebollas. Back when I was just getting started, he brought this home and showed it to me, and I was excited to see it, so he took me down. bottle came from North Twin when they were making the dam, rebuilding the dam in 1906. There was a little base camp just up the hill from where the dam is. And I think Alta Peters, I don't know if anybody remembers Alta Peters, she told me that I might find some old bottles around North Twin. So I got to looking around, searching in the woods, and I found a little dump. You could tell there was some foundations there, cellar holes. And this is what they call a wire bale stopper, wire bale top, blob top. It's a beer. The bottle says, bottle not to be sold, to be returned, washed and returned. Cool. Another bottle that came from Savoyas. It has French writing on it. Dug this right out of the mud. There was a big tree that overturned and the roots were sticking up. And underneath the roots and entangled in the roots was a bunch of old bottles. Apparently there was a dump there and the tree came down in a big windstorm. And I found that dump. I was out bird hunting. Quite excited. Quite a few bottles there, but right in the mud. Got pretty dirty digging that. These next couple of bottles came from near the East Millinocket Cemetery. When they were first making the mill there in East, I think it was 1906 or so, 1907. They had a base camp right where the cemetery is nowadays, right where the town line is. And right in the woods there, right by where the vault is now, there was a dump. And I can't remember who told me about it, but he said to check it out. So I got a story that goes along with that. Sometime I'll tell you. It's quite funny. This, of course, a beer bottle. Nice, they call it a squat beer. This is the other bottle from East Millinocket. It's one of the original Pabst Blue Ribbon bottles. It says Pabst Milwaukee, picture of a hop on it. You know, a hop that they use to make beer. I guess I'll tell you the story. I had a Super Sport, Chevelle Super Sport, sporty looking car back then. I was just out of high school, 19 years old. And so I parked along the road there, right by where the town line sign is, went in the woods and was digging. So after a while, this policeman came in the woods, wondering what the heck was going on. It was Bill Brennan. A lot of people probably remember Bill, nice guy. And he says, "What are you doing here anyway?" And I said, "Well, I'm digging bottles." And I showed him a couple of my bottles, and he kind of scratched his head, and he said, "Well, I guess you're all right." So he went on his way. Another Cedar Lake bottle, blob top beer. It's got the date on it. 1895. Cedar Lake Sporting Camps. This nice little bottle here they call a pepper sauce bottles. It's got the ribs. It's aqua. And back in the day, they used a lot of pepper sauce because they didn't have refrigeration for their meats. And the meats tended to get rancid. So they'd put this pepper sauce on their meat. It took away some of the rancidness. This came from Chester, the Chester Pits, I call it. The old Keene farm. North Twin bottle. As far as I can tell, it was olive oil. I've never seen any of these in any of the bottle books. Nice bottle though. It's kind of thin glass. I was lucky to find it. It wasn't broken. One more pepper sauce bottle. Came from First Ebskenig Garland camps up on the bluffs. 1890, 1900 or so. Very collectible bottle. Bottle collectors like to have these in their collections. They're pretty. They display really well. This is called a crockery beer. It's an English ale type of bottle, but it's made out of crock. Has a little top on it and a handle. Found that in East Wind. Another story that goes with that, but I'll keep that for another day. Crockery type bottle. This is what they call a master ink. It's got a spout on it, see? And you took these little cone inks and you filled up the bottles with them again when they went empty. Master ink. Saboyas. Big cork top bottle, Father John's medicine. Saboyas. Nice one, huh? It's fun when you dig these out of the ground. You can just see the part of the bottle exposed, and you dig all around it and take your time. Hope that it's not broken. Cross your fingers. Like I said, a lot of times they'll be broken, but when you find one that's whole, kind of makes it all worthwhile. Nice one. This is a horse liniment bottle. Dr. Tobias Venetian horse liniment. Sore aching muscles on the old workhorses back then.